Naoya INOUE faces off against TJ DOHENY on September 3rd in Japan. Now he's defending his undisputed status as a junior featherweight against DOHENY. But folks, what I'm going to do is more of a business breakdown than a fight breakdown initially, because I actually think this event is more of a business transaction than it is truly a fight for the fight fans. Now there's three factors that make it pretty clear that this Inoue fight is solely aimed at the Japanese audience. First and foremost, let's look at the airtime. This fight is scheduled to occur on Tuesday, September the 3rd at 2:45 a.m. Los Angeles time and 5:45 a.m. New York time. And in the United States of America, Monday the 2nd is a federal holiday, meaning all banks are closed, stock markets are closed, we're not going to get any mail delivered. So unless folks want to stay up all night and go in a little bit groggy to work Tuesday morning, I'm not so sure how many boxing fans in the US will catch this fight live. Now in the UK, you might be fortunate enough to catch it on your early lunch break. But clearly, just simply timing the card, had it been timed maybe the day before, like actually on the holiday, perhaps this could have captured more of the United States audience. But that was clearly not even the intention. The second factor that shows us this is primarily aimed at the Japanese audience is take a look at the undercard fighters. I'll gladly admit I'm not familiar with any of the other fighters on the undercard. It's filled up with other Japanese national fighters. So I don't think there's a lot of sort of name recognition in terms of Americans or those of you guys in the UK perhaps tuning in to catch the undercard. If you happen to be familiar with some of the fighters on the undercard, please do let me know in the comments. And finally, let's just take a look at the choice of why TJ DOHENY. He's ranked number 7 by the Ring magazine. Well, first, we can't really blame Naoya INOUE for already taking out the number 1, which is Stephen Fulton, or the number 2, which is Marlon Tapales, and the number 5, which is Luis Neri. But then why do we jump all the way to TJ in number 7 and skip over Shan Gibbons, and there's another Eastern European fellow, and I think also Liam Davies might be ranked ahead of TJ. Well, quite simply, TJ has fought 3 or 4 times in Japan already. He's fought at the Tokyo Dome, so the Japanese promoters do like to build somewhat of a narrative, as they did with Luis Neri. Remember, going into that fight versus Inoue, Luis Neri was clearly the quote-unquote bad guy because he had beaten another Japanese fighter. He came in overweight, and so there's a bit of a sort of redemption story behind that one. Now TJ's not so much going to be billed as a bad guy because he did beat a couple of foreigners in Japan, but the point is that he has been exposed, or the Japanese live audience has seen DOHENY fight before, so there's some familiarity there. So all of those factors, I'll add one more sort of little factor. There's a gentleman named Shan Gibbons, whom you see on the dais next to the fighter, next to TJ DOHENY. Shan Gibbons is an American. I'm not sure what he bills himself as a manager or an advisor, but he's been kind of a fixture in the LA boxing scene. Somebody stop by different boxing gyms. He used to constantly stop by Wildcard Gym, especially during the Manny Pacquiao heyday over there. And I think it was after, maybe some of you guys remember Manny Pacquiao's initial lawyer, a Canadian fellow with the first name Michael, who was sort of very fortunate to kind of snatch Manny up as a client early on in Manny's career. Then there was a lot of kind of fallout after that, and at some point Michael was dismissed, or his services were no longer retained. And Shan Gibbons kind of inserted himself into this sort of Filipino boxers coming to LA scene. And now recently I've noticed he's sort of made his way over to Japan. He was sitting next to Louis Neri when Neri fought Inoue. So I don't know, again, if Gibbons is somehow retained as an in-house liaison for either the Japanese promoter or by Top Rank, or if he just manages to catch wind of these fights that are about to take place in Japan and kind of inserts himself into the equation by contacting the fighter or the fighter's team directly. But in any case, he's just a common factor I noticed sort of popping up with these fights versus Inoue. So I think knowing that the Japanese promotion is basically just aiming Inoue's fight at, or this whole card really at solely the Japanese audience, it begs the question as to, why would you do that as a business move? Don't you want to capture the American audience? And the answer is quite simply, obviously not. Remember, Inoue filled up the Tokyo Dome. That's 60,000 seats. It was sold out for his fight versus Neri. He's already an absolute superstar over in Japan, so I guess I just feel like we don't really need the US audience or even the UK audience. And I think it helps to zoom out a little bit and to know and understand that in terms of Japanese business, in many ways, the economy there, or the business philosophy, is still somewhat isolationist. I mean, as it has been perhaps for millennia. I'll take a look at, say, for example, boxing equipment. Those of you guys who actually go to the boxing gym are very familiar with the Japanese boxing equipment brand called Winning. It seems like now everybody and every wannabe and their dog has gone out and purchased either a blue or a red Winning headgear and blue or red Winning gloves and cup. So all in, that'll cost you almost $2,000, maybe definitely over $1,000. And so everybody kind of covets that Winning boxing equipment because, one, it's expensive, and two, it's seen as top of the line. Okay, but top of the line here in the United States. Take a look at what the Winning boxing equipment that we can get here is made out of. It's made out of artificial leather, also known as synthetic leather, also known as vinyl. The regular headgear with just the cheek guards cost over $350. You're paying $350 for vinyl headgear. Now the one with that bar across the mouth, that one costs over $500. Again, made out of vinyl. The gloves, I think, cost approximately between $250 and $300, depending on how many ounces. But again, they're made out of vinyl. And right now, at least in the United States, the gentleman who has the distributorship for Winning Boxing is Mr. Kazumichi, who's based in the LA area. I don't know if he still does this, but he used to at least go to Wildcard periodically, and he would hand deliver gear to fighters if they ordered directly from him. Otherwise, you have to try to go through his website, and it looks like there's a couple month wait time on getting the gear. But it's a significant investment, and quite frankly, I mean, I can't afford that brand of equipment. Now, I will absolutely attest that it is great stuff. Friends loan me their Winning headgear, and it's terrific because it's so light and it fits so well. Now, the point is, even though it arguably is the top of the line in terms of the headgear here in the United States, ask yourself, do you think that Winning Boxing makes any gear out of leather? Well, the answer is absolutely yes. But leather Winning Boxing gear is only available for purchase in Japan. So effectively, you need to know somebody in Japan, or somebody who's traveling to Japan who's willing to go and purchase it for you and then bring it back. Shipping is super expensive from Japan. unless you're willing to wait like months for it to come over in a boat. In any case, the point here is that many Japanese manufacturers do not release their absolute top-of-the-line equipment out onto the international scene, especially when they already know that their top of their third-rated line is better than everything else that's out there, which seems to be the case in terms of winning boxing. Now, those of you who are familiar with judo might remember at one point Mizuno judo gis were the top-of-the-line gis on the market, and those of us in North America would, save up our money to try to get the gold standard Mizuno judo gi available in North America. At the time, Hatashida Enterprises had the distributorship for judo gis in North America through Mizuno. And so we'd buy this top-of-the-line Mizuno and put our gi on, be all proud of ourselves, step out onto the mat. But if we were at an international tournament and the Japanese team was present, as soon as they'd walk onto the mat, we'd look at their gis and look down at our gis and go, oh, wow. Like, their gis were just clearly 2 levels above what we had. And again, it's not just because they're on the Japanese team, it's because those gis simply were not going to be made available to us or to anybody outside of Japan. Any of you guys who are golfers or play baseball, I'm going to guess that maybe you can attest to the same thing in terms of Mizuno's golf equipment or their baseball equipment. So what is the purpose of even having this Inoue fight, if it's not to try? Well, I think in this case, we're using Naoya Inoue's draw factor to gain more exposure for the other Japanese fighters on the undercard. I mean, secondary purpose, it does serve to keep Inoue active, as we say, and allow him to go through the stress of having a training camp, making weight, stepping in the ring under the bright lights, and getting there and getting the job done and executing whatever game plan he and his corner have devised. So knowing that this is really more of a business deal than it is a fight, I'm only going to devote a little bit of analysis to the actual fight itself. So TJ DOHENY is stepping in as a southpaw. We just saw Inoue's last fight versus Neri, also a southpaw. So we know the southpaw versus righty stance is not going to be any sort of issue for Inoue. My main concern for DOHENY is just from the little bit that I've watched of him, is that while he's fundamentally sound and he does know how to throw his punches correctly and precisely and how to put his punches together, DOHENY tends to not fight with a sense of real urgency. In fact, in some cases, it looks to me like it's almost as if he's one of these fighters that's trying to imitate what he thinks a world-class fighter should look like. Now, that's a bit abstract or esoteric almost, and that may not be apparent to people who just spend all their time watching fights on YouTube. But if you've watched fights live enough and you've seen enough live sparring, you can sense when somebody has at least a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a bad intention in that ring. And that's something that I feel is lacking from DOHENY, and that's the major pitfall for him when he steps in there versus Inoue. I mean, it's safe to say we already know that Inoue is so technically sound, he's so subtle with his movement, he's got excellent distance control, and he's got explosive power. He knows how to set up his punches and put them together, and he's definitely got KO power with either his right hand or that left body shot. So I don't think the technical matchup is even the issue. It's really almost more a matchup of the spirits. Will DOHENY rise to the occasion? Because here's the thing, I mean, as intimidating as it might be to step in there with Inoue, he has to step it up. He has to take the fight to Inoue, because if he just sort of goes through the motions, as I've seen him do, or if he, worse yet, tries to just run away or avoid getting hit by Inoue, that's just That's just asking Inoue to step it up and take him out with even more ferocity. So as almost sort of suicidal as it sounds, it behooves Doheny to take the fight to Inoue and try to punch with the puncher, as it were. Now, I mean, in a sense, he's sort of the perfect foe for Inoue because, again, Inoue's got that straight right hand, left body shot, versus the southpaw. That straight right hand is lined up for either the body or the head. And Inoue can and does play off his left body shot with his right hand very well. So, you know, if he gets Doheny kind of covering up for the right hand to the head, that's the perfect setup to go straight for that left body shot, or vice versa. If he gets Doheny kind of trying to cover up by leaning in and forward to cover up for the left liver shot, he can come upstairs with that right hand or left hook. So in terms of fight outcome, I honestly do not see this going past the 6th round. I think it may not even get past 4 rounds. But it kind of sort of depends on how long Doheny can hang in there. I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't, he's just not on a world-class level that he doesn't have some sort of special factor that could allow him to perhaps last a little bit longer than some of Inoue's other foes. We could argue that even though Neri and Tapales got knocked out by Inoue, they have something distinctive about the way that they fight, and they are able to tap into that and bring that to the table, whether it's against Inoue or any of their other opponents. But I don't see TJ Doheny having a sort of distinctive factor in the way that he fights. So tell me how long you think this fight will last. Are you going to try to tune in live time to watch Naoya INOUE versus TJ Doheny? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please feel free to scroll over and leave a super thanks, or head over to buymeacoffee.com/Hamaguchi-fight and buy a coffee. If you enjoy getting early access to the fight breakdowns, please consider joining our membership side. You'll also get priority replies from me, you'll earn a white belt automatically, and you will have a say in the content of this channel. Thanks again for listening.